Next, I'd like to welcome distinguished alumnus and faculty member William Snyder to the stage. William, can you come up? William is currently chair of RIT's photojournalism program. He graduated in 1981 from RIT with highest honors from our professional photography program. He joined the Miami News and 2 years later moved to the photography staff of the Dallas Morning News, where he served as a staff photographer for 15 years. It was during these years when he won not one, not two, but 3 coveted Pulitzer Prizes for his photojournalism work. Then in 2005, he was named the Morning News Director of Photography and guided his staff to a 2006 Pulitzer Prize for their coverage of Hurricane Katrina. And yes, if you're keeping count, that makes 4. He also produced Eyes of the Storm, a 256-page book featuring images from Hurricanes Katrina and Rita that sold over 14,000 copies. William has also freelanced as a sports photographer and as tour photographer for the rock group The Who for over 17 years. Wow. He has won numerous awards from local, state, national, and international competitions. He has lectured at numerous universities and journalism associations, and he's been published in dozens of periodicals. He also serves on RIT's Alumni Association Board of Directors, is an advisor to the Reporter magazine here on campus, and was recognized as an RIT Distinguished Alumnus in 2008. So please join me in thanking William for his service to RIT and welcoming him to the podium.
Well, thanks very much for having me here. I want to thank Dr. Hafner, the trustees, the alumni, faculty, the staff, especially the students, and as long as we're talking about the Alumni Association, Eric Kukov, thank you very much. A little bit earlier today, Renata asked me sort of if I'd figured out what my purpose in life is, and he was sort of surprised, I think, to hear that, yeah, I've kind of figured that out. I'm a storyteller. I always have been, and I think I will be until I die. I started out just as a kid taking pictures, and then went to school, did it as a profession, and now I try to pass that on to all my students. We've been hearing stories about people's journeys. And they've involved a lot of individuals in their journeys. Mine is sort of a singular path and a solo path because as a photojournalist, you have a tendency many times to work alone. But let me kind of back up a little bit and go back to the beginning. When I was young, I always looked at photographs, you know. They were in magazines that came to our doorstep every week, every month. National Geographic, Look magazine. Some of you that are old enough will remember Look magazine. Most of you won't. And Life magazine. And I used to look at those, and I lived in a little small town in Kentucky, barely 20,000 people, and it took me to other places and allowed me to see the rest of the world. But the other thing that happened around that time when I was really very little was I had an older brother. His name was Charlie. He was named after our father. And when I was very young, he was killed by a drunk driver. So this was pretty devastating to the family. And as you can see, these newspapers back in those days were about twice the size. So this was my first exposure to photojournalism on a very personal level. It didn't hurt us. It actually sort of helped us heal. But the other thing that helped us heal, it helped me sort of remember my brother, was this little box of photographs that my mother had. It was a shoebox. It was in this cabinet in the front living room. And I used to spend a lot of time going through that. And it kept my brother's memory alive for me. So I realized that with these pictures, I began to associate photography with memories. and more specifically with emotional memories. This is me and my brother. It was on our last vacation before he was killed. That's me and the whitey tighties. They're not real tight and probably not that wide either, but anyway. But these are the few things that I had to remember him by. And so I began to associate pictures with memories and emotions. Also, at that time, it was the 60s. And so in the 60s, we saw a lot of things happening around the world. The start of the Vietnam War, the Kennedy assassination, civil rights, horrible things happening in Vietnam, Martin Luther King Jr., My Lai massacre, Bobby Kennedy, Kent State, this horrible, horrible picture that really sort of helped hasten the end of the Vietnam War, and then the end itself, the escape from Hanoi. I got to see the world through all these pictures. Many of these pictures are Pulitzer Prize-winning pictures, and when you're a little kid, that thing sounds really amazing. So like Academy Award, Pulitzer Prizes, And when I went to high school, we had an assignment where we had to take pictures and then write something about the pictures that we had made. And I didn't know anything about photography. We'd always had those cameras. We'd always had pictures in the house. But I didn't have that. And I was going to go to Europe that summer. And my parents were kind enough to buy me a real camera. And so I began to take pictures. And this is sort of, this was me in high school. This thing was always in front of my face. And the thing that I loved the most about it was that it allowed me to go and be places where most other people couldn't. I could skip classes and I could break into other classes with impunity and make pictures because I worked for the yearbook. And sort of just roam the halls and do all those things that you're not supposed to do in high school. But I began to take a lot of pictures, and people began to encourage me. I began to work for my local newspaper. I went on trips. I took pictures all over the place, and it was one of those things people used to joke and say, "Oh, the Pulitzer Prize winner is here." I'd walk into a classroom and they'd start all that. And so it kind of became one of those things. Earlier people have talked about their dreams. Well, that became one of my dreams. I wanted to be what we used to call a globe-trotting photojournalist, because I was interested in the outside stuff. And for a little while there, I sort of got away from the emotional connection I had with pictures. But when I came to RIT taught me several things. First of all, they taught me about hard work. And I wasn't the smartest guy, and I wasn't the most talented photographer. But I knew that if I worked really, really hard, I could slowly but surely meet all my goals. Thomas Alva Edison once said, and I'm going to paraphrase him here. He said, opportunity, and I'd like to think of it as creativity, is missed by most people because it comes dressed in overalls and looks like work. And so I learned that at RIT. So I began to make pictures at RIT and tried to get in a little bit deeper. RIT taught me about craft, but RIT also taught me about the possibilities. Possibilities in the craft, possibilities in the world, possibilities of what I could do with myself. And so I finished up at RIT, and immediately I was lucky enough to get a job straight out of school, thanks to a gentleman sitting here who wasn't a teacher of mine, but he was a good friend of mine, Gunther Cartwright. He's a retired professor here. He sent me on the way to this job in Miami. And I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to kind of cut through that, my time in Miami and my early time in Dallas. But as I worked in Dallas, it became more and more apparent that the thing that was the most important thing in photography was emotion. Going for emotion. And I had seen this quote, a man has not seen a thing who has not felt it. And that quote always stuck with me. And I began to apply it. So many people ask about the Pulitzers. Well, I'm just going to show them to you here. They're going to go by kind of fast, but I want to talk about them just a little bit and how that sort of basic idea has informed every single one that I've done. So the first one that I won for was a group project called How the National Transportation Safety Board Conducts an Air Crash Investigation. Now that's a horrible thing, but God is it boring. It's a very process-oriented thing. My job was to try to figure out a way to bring some sort of humanity to this, and it was not easy. And I had to do it through the investigative team and some of the members that are left over. These aren't all the pictures, but these are some of them. And tried to show you a little bit about the process and the meticulousness that's involved with trying to figure out what happened. Why a plane that took off from Teterboro, New Jersey, ended up basically going 90 degrees into the ground in East Texas. This is what they do, is they put the plane back together again in a hangar like this. They try to find all 4 points. And out of that hole, that's all they could pull out. Even things as small as a filament in a light bulb can give you great evidence. So it was my job to sort of illustrate this story. And it ends up, in a boardroom somewhere with recommendations. So Romanian Orphans was the next one that I did, and it's Homes for the Irrecoverables. And this was where I began to get a little bit deeper. It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. What is essential is invisible to the eye. And I want everybody to think about that. Because so many times we think about photography as just being something that you look at. It's this object. And the best photographs are the ones that you feel. Not the ones that you see, but the ones that you feel. And so I went on this trip. It was self-financed, it was self-produced, because my boss at the newspaper didn't think it was that important or that good. So I went off and did it on my own. And what I found were these horrible conditions with these children. And it was one of those sort of life-changing events. But the thing that I'm most proud of was a few years later, I was talking to a friend of mine who was doing missionary work in Romania, and he was trying to get permission from the Romanian government to be there. And they said, well, we don't know if we want you to do this. And he was like, well, why not? He says, well, we don't want you to embarrass us like that guy did, a few years ago with the Pulitzer Prize. So I felt pretty good about that I could embarrass an entire government into at least making some changes. So Barcelona Olympics, the thing about that is, how do you humanize a super big track meet? Well, you try to get in there and you try to show people what it feels like to be one of these athletes, whether it's just celebrating a win, in any way that you possibly can, having fun flying through the air, or you're disappointed because you didn't win. Getting to the feeling of it all. And then finally, I sort of finish up with Hurricane Katrina. I didn't make any of these pictures, but I talked to the photographers, each photographer as they went out, and the whole idea behind these pictures was, okay, with the first couple of pictures that we've got, we see that, it's a big flood. But who really cares about the buildings? It's the people that are impacted by this thing that are most important thing. Tell their story. Don't just show, destruction. And don't necessarily show death, but show how people are trying to survive and trying to start their lives, or at least keep their lives together. And so that was one of the things that we did better than anybody else. It got to the point where after a couple of days, newspapers across the country were waiting to put their papers together until they saw what we did, because we were telling stories about people. We weren't telling stories about a flood. We weren't telling stories about buildings that were knocked down. We were telling stories about people and how they were impacted by this. And so, in closing, because my time is now up, I'd just like to remind everybody that photography is a very, very powerful medium for storytelling. But if it's only about the way things look, then it's not utilizing its strengths to its utmost. Excuse me. It has to be about people. It has to be about their stories. It's not about the photographer. It's about what everybody's life in this room is about, and whether you can tell that story as a photographer. And that's what I try to teach my students. So thank you very much. Wow, thanks.